Hey, what's going on everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be turning the brand new 2022 iPad Pro with the M2 chip into a gaming console. I'm talking about big screen gaming on this device here. Now I gotta say, this worked out much better than I thought it would. We're going to be testing out a bunch of native iOS games connected to a larger display, be it a TV or a monitor. We're also going to check out some PC game streaming, cloud gaming, and emulation. So for the longest time with iOS or iPad OS, since we have an iPad here, we've had really great controller support. If you want to use an Xbox controller or a PS4 controller, you can just connect it over Bluetooth, and a ton of the games from the App Store will just natively work with a controller. And it's really no different when you have this connected to a larger display. And in order to do this, there's actually a couple ways we can go about it. You can use an adapter that looks something like this, basically USB Type-C to HDMI, and with this one here we've got a few extra USB ports, micro SD, and even Ethernet on this unit, which does help out with cloud gaming. But with all of the iPads that have a USB Type-C port, they do support display out, so we can connect this to a larger TV or a monitor. And with the new 2022 iPad Pro, we can actually do 4K out. Now running your games at 4K really depends on the developer of the app itself, but we can get 4K 60 to a bigger screen. There's a couple other ways you can go about this, like picking up a dock. That way you've got a stand for the iPad, and it's basically the same thing as the little adapter, it's just in dock form. And I will leave links in the description to the dock and the adapter I use, but if you've got a newer monitor that supports USB Type-C video in or display over USB Type-C, all you need to do is go ahead and plug the iPad directly into it. And with this one here, it actually does support HDR mode. So we're at 4K 60 with HDR, and obviously we've got black bars on the side. That's really just how it's going to be with the iPad, given that the aspect ratio of the monitor we're using and the iPad screen is much different. To help out a little bit, you can always enable overscan, but I've noticed that it kind of cuts off the sides a little bit, so I personally don't like using it. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into some testing. I'm going to be using an Xbox controller connected over Bluetooth, and keep in mind, with this new iPad, we've got 8 GB of RAM and the M2 Apple Silicon chip. Jumping right into it with Diablo Immortal. Now from the settings, we're at Ultra 60 FPS, and hopefully in the future we do get a 120 Hz mode for this, but this does have really great controller support because even when you're in the settings menu, you can use your left analog stick on the controller and we get an on-screen cursor, so we can basically tap and choose anything we need directly from the controller. There's no need to use the touch screen with this one. Next up, we've got Call of Duty Mobile, and there's a lot of settings that we can change with this, but basically the way I've got it set up right now is very high. Everything is on, from God Rays to Ragdoll, and we're set to max FPS. And like I mentioned, I think we're kind of locked here at 60 on an external display, but it does look good on this bigger screen here and plays really great with the controller. And basically any other game that uses the same engine, like Apex Legends, is also going to run just as well. Same exact thing here, we're totally maxed out at 60 FPS, and this one actually gives me an on-screen FPS counter. I know it's a bit hard to see, but we are locked at 60 on the M2 iPad Pro.
Contact. I fought strong and barrel stabilizer here. Level 3.
I also figured I'd throw one racing game in here. We do have Grid available on the App Store, but I haven't bought it on iOS yet. I've got it on Android, and it runs great on the Galaxy Tab S8. So I figured I'd go with something that's easily accessible like Asphalt 9, and this is one of those games that's been on the market for a while, very well optimized. And of course, you're going to get great performance with this game on the iPad Pro. And the final native iOS game I wanted to test here was Genshin Impact. So, on the newer iPhones, we do have a 120 Hz mode. The new iPad Pro M2 has a 120 Hz display, but the update isn't out yet to enable 120. But right now, we are maxed out very high 60 FPS, and this game runs amazingly on the M2 chip. I personally can't wait for that 120 Hz mode to come over here because I think it would be really great playing on a bigger screen like this. Next thing I wanted to test here was a little bit of Steam Link gaming. So right now I'm actually connected with an HDMI dock and I've got Ethernet plugged in. With Ethernet, I'm just going to get much better performance over my home network here. And all of the stuff that we've taken a look at so far has those black bars on the side, but I think this really comes down to a developer's choice, because on iOS you can optimize a game or an application for an external display like Steam Link here. We've still got the bars, but as soon as I go in to start streaming from my PC, you see we go full screen with it. And by the way, I'm on the latest beta here, so we have that gamepad UI, and it does work out really well using Steam Link. This will be replacing big picture mode, officially soon, but you can enable this right now on your PC, and it's actually pretty easy to do. I'll leave a link to a video I created in the description. And I do want to mention that using Steam Link here is way different than cloud gaming. This is actually connected to my home PC over my network, so I've got a pretty beefy PC right here. And I want to show you that we're still using this iPad to stream to. Just go to the home screen. And Steam Link really does a great job at supporting that external display. We can even bring up on-screen controls on the tablet screen itself and just use the external display for gameplay. But I gotta say, I've had really good luck with iOS and Steam Link, be it on an iPhone or an iPad, especially when I'm connected to Ethernet on my main gaming PC and the iPad itself. I just get a really good stable connection here, and to tell you the truth, if I just had this running on my TV, I'd say it was playing directly on the PC. And the game performance itself is really going to be dependent on your PC that you're streaming from, but if you've got a pretty decent setup, you can do up to 144 Hz using Steam Link on iOS. Next up, I did want to test a little bit of cloud gaming. We've got Xbox Game Pass. So this is kind of the web app that you can add to your home screen. Unfortunately, we don't have like a fully integrated iOS app for Game Pass right now. And I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't really into cloud gaming, but if you've got a decent internet connection, this really isn't that bad. One thing I'd love to see Microsoft improve is just a little bit of image quality, maybe some sharpening going on with mobile, because when you're on a desktop, we do have that kind of image enhancer that we can use in certain browsers, and it does make the picture look a lot better. Okay, so the final thing I wanted to show off here was some emulation. Now, we all know that we can't download emulators directly from the App Store, but you don't need a jailbroken iPad to do it. I use something called AltStore, and basically I'm using my own free Apple developer account to sideload different applications. We can do up to 3 applications. So I've got Dolphin iOS, which is a GameCube and Wii emulator for iOS devices, and on the M2 iPad, we can actually emulate these games, be it GameCube or Wii, up to 4K. There was only one game I had to drop it down to 1440p, and that was Rogue Squadron 2. But overall, I've had really great luck with emulation on the M2 iPad. And if you're interested in seeing how this thing really performs with emulation, I've created a full video. Link for that is down below. We tested out a bunch of GameCube, Wii, PSP, Sega Saturn. It does a great job. And as you can see, we've got F-Zero GX here, a GameCube game running at 4K Vulkan backend at 60 FPS. Frame counter's up in the top right hand corner. And yeah, it's going to run this game at full speed. There's no doubt that this Apple M2 chip really does a great job at gaming and emulation, but I really do wish that we'd see more implementation of external display support. So things like Genshin Impact, when we plug it in, it'll go full screen, because there are a lot of people out there that just get annoyed with those black bars. But if you're on a large enough display, like let's say a 55-inch display in the living room, you've got so much more screen real estate on that external display than you do on the iPad's built-in screen, and it really does work very well. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. I had a few people asking about this, so I figured I'd go ahead and make a quick video. If there's anything else you want to see running on the new 2022 iPad Pro with the M2 chip, just let me know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.